Thank you. I know that we want to ensure that everybody has access to this information, and for those who may not be able to join us today, that we can go ahead and we can share this with anyone who is interested. So I want to take this opportunity to thank you all for joining us today. My name is Rebecca Estrada. I'm the Deputy Commissioner of Youth Services here at DFSS. And I'm also joined with our contracts and finance divisions. We wanted to put this training together for you because, we want the contracts to be executed in a timely fashion and for your questions to be answered. And so we are asking folks to please wait until the end of the presentation to ask any questions. You're free to put your questions in the chat and we'll try to get through them, but we do want to get through the entire presentation today so that, you're able to see all of the remarks by everyone on the teams today. And so if you can jump to the next slide, Maria. Okay, and so for today, just a quick agenda. We are going to do our welcome and introductions. We'll go over the delegate agency policy updates, DFSS award and contract requirements, budget reviews, allowable costs, budget reminders, vouchering, and deadlines, and just FAQs. So it is a very, very full agenda. So, again, as I said, please be sure to hold your questions to the end or feel free to enter it in the chat. And we will be monitoring and trying to address each of your questions, but we do want to get through the entire presentation today. Next slide. Just, the next couple of slides is information on our teams. And so for folks who are aware, or sometimes people don't always know, who do I contact and who is my liaison, who is the director. And so for our enrichment team, we have Cesar Garza and Karen Nolan as our youth service coordinators. You should have already been in contact with most of them in terms of your contracts, and Maria Guzman is our enrichment director. For our prevention and intervention program, Lisa Hampton, director, Samantha Edwards is our program manager, Monica and Raisana are both our YSCs. And then for our employment program, Lisa Davis is our director and Evelyn Benitez is our youth service coordinator. And then with that, I will pass it to finance.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Mahita Cizak. I'm the Director of Finance. Nicole Latimer Williams is the Deputy Commissioner for Finance. My team consists of Darnetta Anderson, who is the accountant over the enrichment portfolio. Most of you have worked with Anthony Bruce previously on the prevention and intervention portfolio. He has retired from city service as of December 31st. In the interim, as we work to fill that vacancy, Muriel Buckner, who many of you know, that is our accounting technician, will also be acting in the interim accountant role for this portfolio. And Emma Hine, who is our contracted temporary finance officer, will also be assisting with the prevention and intervention portfolio within the youth division. Next slide. Alpha.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Alpha Riley. I am the contracts manager for the Department of Family and Support Services. We have a representation probably of some of our team on the call today. We have an awesome team that helps to process your contracts. We have Dorothy Gardner, Remily Victa, Tawana Bridges, Rosalind Joshua. We also have Hilda Sagato. You may also receive correspondence from Mary Fanny Pacheco and Angelina Santos, who helps with the economic disclosure statement. And then we also have our Deputy Commissioner, Kevin Givens. All right, so I will go over some of the changes to policy changes that were incorporated by the Office of Budget and Management. All right. So as far as contracts and amendments, PDF of manual signatures are accepted. So we no longer are actually requiring that you send those documents in. We actually have been doing accepting PDFs for a while. Okay, we would ask that those documents are not docu-signed, because sometimes if they're docu-signed, then we are not able to manipulate those changes. But all right, signature authorizations. So signature authorization forms are no longer needed. So I know that that is probably a yay, because we have been requiring those for quite a while. Budget revisions and budget amendments. The city will accept PDF of manual signatures. Wet signatures are no longer required. All right, bank depository and EFT forms. Delegate departments are no longer required to request delegate agencies to submit a bank depository form or EFT form with the contracts. So only new agencies are requesting to change their bank account are required to complete this form. All right, and it must be submitted to the Department of Finance. All right, so now I'll briefly go over award notice and contract requirements. By now, you should have received your contract documents. So I just want to highlight some of the areas within those documents. So I believe most of your documents were amendments. So the information in your letters really has not changed a lot in regards to your PO numbers, your specification numbers, but just for anyone who is new on the call, right in the award notice, it contains a lot of individual information that identifies your contract. So your PO number is unique to your specific contract, okay? You have your vendor number, your specification number, your program name, program model, budget start, budget end date. Then those are listed there. Some other things I want to point out is your program manager. Okay, so this identifies your unique program manager from the contracts team who will be assisting you to make sure your contract is awarded. And then you'll have your finance person as well. All right, so for the contract checklist, and I'm trying to zoom it, but if you can't see it, then I would say that you should refer to your individual contract documents to kind of walk through this if you can't see it on the screen. All right, so for your contracting checklist, if you do have an amendment, it does come with an agreement signature page. All right, we're asking for a certificate of insurance and your economic disclosure statement, which I'll walk through in more detail on the next few slides. Those are only good for a year, right? And so if you did one last year for the same PO, then we can use it. But if it's been over a year, then we cannot use your economic disclosure statement. And remember, the economic disclosure statements are by purchase order. So if you have multiple purchase orders, then EDSs are needed for multiple purchase orders. Unfortunately, we can't use the same EDS across multiple POs. All right, so and this contracting checklist is divided by the different parties that will touch your contract, right? So the first few documents, which is your signature agreement page, your certificate of insurance, and your EDS, those documents will go to your contract liaison. And then the other documents that we will also go cover on this presentation are items like your budget and your scope. Those would go to your program manager. And if there is like a lease agreement or affidavit, those additional documents go to your program manager. Okay, so it looks like I can't go to the next.
Yeah, Adolpha, you can just let me know.
All right, there you go. Thank you so much. All right, so your signature agreement page. So the great thing about this form this year is that it no longer needs to be notarized. All right. So if for some reason you received a version that has a notary at the bottom, it does not need to be filled out. All right, just you can submit it to us. So as far as who can actually sign for your agency, let me just go over this. So right now, what we have is that the executive director or your president can actually sign for your agency without providing proof of signature authority, okay? Anyone else outside of those individuals, we're gonna ask for proof of signature authority. So one may ask, what does that actually mean? Okay, what that means is that we are looking for documentation within your organization that outlines that you have the ability to bind your agency. Okay, because what we know is that not everyone has the ability to sign on behalf of your agency. So if you're submitting it and you have a senior role within your organization, which we see all the time, for us, because we have so many different agencies that we deal with, we're not saying that you don't have the authority. We just need to see it in writing. Okay, that could be a board document from your board. Sometimes they're meeting annually. Every agency is different. We've seen agencies that are smaller and they don't have a board. We have, with those agencies, some documents have been created if you don't have those, but typically most of the agencies have some document that stipulates who has the ability to bind the agency and what that authority is, because you may have authority, but it could be up to a certain amount of a contract. We also see that. So, and those authorities, once we have them within a certain period, we generally, whatever if your board is meeting once a year, we'll keep that internally so that we don't have to ask you for that document over and over again, because we do realize some of you may have multiple contracts. And so we don't, if we keep an internal record of that, and we try not to ask over and over again for those documents. But it could be that we're going into a new year, depending on, when your board meets, that we may ask you for that. So again, that is what is deemed to be a signature authority and examples of documents that are acceptable for signature authority. If your executive director or your president has changed, we ask that you let us know so that we can update our records, send you out any forms that need to be filled out. Typically, it's a letter on letterhead from your agency that outlines who's changed. And then there is something called a DABI form. You guys may have heard that, which is a delegate agency business information form, which we're asking who your contacts are, your finance person, who's your executive director, and an alternate contact. Okay, so that is for the agreement signature page. Maria? Next slide, please. All right. So your economic disclosure statement, as I mentioned a moment ago with the economic disclosure statement, these are by PO numbers. So the good thing about the economic disclosure statements is they are electronic, right? Years ago, they would be paper and you have to do this paper over and over and over again. And once you set up your profile within the system, then it is just a matter of reproducing a new EDS based on your information that's already in the system. Now, if you have information that needs to be changed, then you have to do what's known as the information update. And then that information will be updated. And then when your new EDS is produced, then it will include your new information or information if you need to address your
Oh, we lost you. We lost your audio. Looks like we're having some technical difficulties. We'll give Alpha a little bit of time to try to get back on. Oh, she has logged off and is going to try to log back in. Thanks for your patience. There you are.
All right.
There you go.
Okay. So, I mean, we've covered EDS. Sorry about that difficulties. EDS, at the end of going through the EDS and all the questions it asks, I mean, we are a government, you're, doing business with a governmental agency. And so because you're doing business with a governmental agency, there are certain disclosures that you have to make. At the end of that filing, what you'll get, as you can see on the screen, is a certificate of filing. And that is what you will submit to your contracts liaison.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to proceed with the presentation and cover the delegate agency budget form. This is the city's standard budget form that's used to ensure consistency with our delegate agency in the collection and submission of budget and expense requests for the fiscal year. That document is an Excel workbook, and it includes required information, and particularly fields that are highlighted in yellow is what is needed to be completed. Next slide. The delegate agency budget form consists of 3 forms. I believe a copy of the Excel workbook has been provided in the chat for you to pull up on your end, so you're able to follow along with these instructions. Form 1 is what we call the budget summary. Form 2 is our personnel budget. And if additional pages are needed to reflect personnel for your agency, it will be reflected in Form 2A, 2B, or 2C, only if needed. Form 3 is what captures your non-personnel related budget requests. I want to make a note that the budget forms are locked from editing, and only areas that are shaded in yellow is where data should be inputted. Next slide. Moving on specifically to the budget summary form, which is Form 1. There are 3 main sections on this form. The first part is the header, where it captures general information on your agency. The second relates to budget lines. And the third is required signatures. Once again, I want to mention the yellow shaded areas within the Excel workbook is what is only required to be completed. Next slide. So this is a visual of Form 1. So we went over the header information, which is highlighted in yellow, from A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H. And then the budget lines, which is captured in the body of the form, which is personnel, fringe benefits, operating technical, professional technical services, travel, materials and supplies, equipment, indirect, and other. The bottom half is the required signature that is needed from your agency. Form 1 requires a signature. And later in the year, when we are processing budget revisions, Form 1A will also be signed. Next slide. Completing the budget summary form, Form 1. I'm going to reiterate only the yellow shaded areas only. We walk through what is required as it relates to the header information that's reflected through letters A through G. You'll indicate your delegate agency name. You'll refer to your award notice, which Alpha covered. It will list a program name. You will indicate who is completing this budget form. What is the preparer's name, email address, and phone number? So if there are any specific questions that the program or the DFSS finance accountant has, they will be reaching out to this individual. Your supplier site number, which is also noted on the award notice and listed as the vendor number or the site. And then your federal employer identification number, otherwise known as the FEIN or tax ID number. And then the signature of the delegate, the official that is signing off on the budget and submission from your agency, and a date. Next slide. Moving on to Form 2, personnel budget. This is specifically in regards to personnel positions as well as fringe benefits that are being requested. Once again, only complete areas shaded in yellow. Next slide. Going down into more detail, the personnel expenses follow in the account code 0005. You'll be indicating the total amount of personnel costs, which will be identified in line 12 on the budget form. So you will be completing columns 1 through 6, 8, and 11 for each requested position. Fringe benefits, which can include life insurance, workers' compensation, health insurance, unemployment insurance, dental plans, and Medicare. That information, once inputted, will be reflected under the total amount identified in line 19 on the Excel budget form. You'll be required to complete rows 13 through 18, if applicable. And if utilizing the other lines within the fringe benefits, a description will need to be entered under line 17 and 18, as well as calculations for your requested amount. I want to make a note that the budget forms, which are electronic and are relational, automatically transfer information that will be derived from the total personnel and fringe benefit amounts, and that are also linked to Form 2, 2A, 2B, and 2C, if applicable, to the body of Form 1. So once information is completed on Form 2 and 2A and 2B, 2C, if applicable, it will populate on Form 1, which is the budget summary form. Next slide. And here is a visual of a completed Form 2, denoting the requested positions. We do not need names of the employees. We just need the title that is being requested. So for this example, one program manager with an annual salary of $26,000 at a request for 26 pay periods. The percent budgeted on working on this program and the request for dollars, the maximum allowed for this employee per pay period would come out to $500. The grant award share would be $13,000, and whether it's matching funds or other source of funding from other than the city that's contributing to this program, that would be reflected in the other share column, and the total program cost, which is going to be your grant award share plus your other share, and a description of the job responsibilities of this position that supports this programmatic work. Same logic with the program coordinator. This position is hourly, so you will see the column under hours per pay period will be entered as 60, and then the respective maximum compensation per employee per each pay period comes out to $600. The grant award share, $15,600. Other share, other funding sources to support this program will be reflected under column labeled 9, other share, and then column 8, grant award share with 9 other share will equal your total program cost for this position. And it just in a brief description about the job responsibilities as it relates to the program coordinator. And the bottom half will be the fringe benefits area. So you'll have Social Security, Medicare, if there's state unemployment insurance, state workers' compensation. You'll complete the fields that are in yellow. And if there's any other funding sources that will contribute to the cost of these fringe benefits, they will be captured in the other share column. And then the total costs will be calculated based on grant award share plus other share. And then the respective rates for Social Security, 6.2, 1.45 for Medicare, state unemployment insurance, 2.5, and state workers' compensation, 2.0. And then if there are additional fringe benefits, they'll be captured on lines 17 and 18. Please list out what that benefit name is and provide the calculation, the corresponding rate, and the request through the grant award share. Next slide. Just reiterating information in regards to the personnel budget that's captured on Form 2A, 2B, and 2C only if needed. If the positions you're requesting do not fit completely on Form 2, you have the ability to utilize additional forms to capture the request for the personnel. Next slide. And this is a visual of Form 2A, where other positions can be captured. Next slide. Personnel budget Form 2, personnel allocation. We walk through the position title. Please do not list any specific employee names. You'll list the number of employees. Say you have 2 program coordinators, you would list the number in respect to the position you're requesting to be funded, and then annual or hourly wage for that position. You'll indicate the annual salary and or the hourly wage. And just a reminder to complete the shaded areas only. Next slide. And just recapping column 4, 5, and 6, the number of pay periods. So you're going to be listing your position and you're going to indicate the number of pay periods that will fall within the term of your award. Hours per pay period. This should be left blank if the employee has an annual salary. If they're hourly, please indicate the number of hours. If the hours are not constant, use an average, but be sure to make sure that that maximum allowed per pay period is the dollar amount that you need, especially when vouchers are being audited by the city's comptroller's office. They will review the approved budget and cross-check what is being submitted as a request for that position. And it will need to fall within the maximum compensation for that title per pay period in order to be paid out. Anything above the max compensation per period will be deleted, meaning it will not be reimbursed. So please pay special attention to ensuring your max per pay period is accurately reflecting what that individual is going to receive as a max. Column 6 is the percent of time budgeted. What percent are they working on this program? Is it 50%? Is it 75%? Is it 100%? That will need to be indicated. And then this is just a little snapshot of our enrichment program model and the number of pay periods based on how they operate. So for the school year programming, it's 20 twice a month. There's 23 for every other week. For year-round programming, 24 pay periods, which is twice a month, 26 if it's every other week. And then the summer and school breaks programming is 18 for number of pay periods. Next slide. Column 7, I just went over maximum compensation for each pay period. Very important to ensure that that is accurately reflecting what the employee at a max will be receiving per pay period. And we don't want to shortchange the request. And it needs to be noted on the budget form, which will be used when vouchers are submitted and cross-checked with that column on the approved budget. And for every position listed on Form 2 through 2C, just to note that the column will automatically populate based on the formula that's in place on the standard template, and it will be entered in grant award share. So the formula is grant award share divided by number of pay periods. And just a reminder, yellow shaded areas only is where data should be inputted. Next slide. Form 2, more detail and review. Column 8 on the budget form, grant award share. As mentioned, indicating the amount of the total salary, which is going to be the grant award share plus the other share. So the other share, if there's any matching dollars, your agency will be contributing. If there is any other non-city sources of funds that will be supporting the program, that should be captured in the other share line. You also want to review your award notice so you know the dollar amount that your budget needs to equal up to, regardless of the other share contribution. And just a rule, the grant award share can be equal to or less than the total cost. The grant award share can never exceed the total cost. Next slide. Column 9, other share. Once again, the Excel is set up to automatically compute that amount from the other share. And another comment, the other share should never be a negative number. So if you are getting a negative number, you want to revisit instructions so that that can be addressed. That should be a red flag that there's an error in inputting. You want to just make sure that there is not any negative numbers that are appearing. And then total program costs, it'll be automatically populated for you based on the formulas from the information that you've inputted in columns 2 through 6. Next slide. Just a recap on the fringe benefits. Item 13 and 14, Social Security and Medicare, also known as the Federal Insurance Contribution Act, FICA. That total cost will be automatically calculated as well, based on the total salary request. And then the calculation for Social Security will be total salary costs times 6.20. And for Medicare, total salary costs times 1.45. Next slide. For item 15, state unemployment insurance, just note that, this varies by agency. So you'll indicate, specifically what your agency is requesting. Same thing for item 16, state workers' compensation. Please list the rate that is applicable to your agency. And then items 17 and 18, which are noted as other, please list out what that other fringe benefit is. Some examples include health insurance, dental, 401k. All computations for total costs in the calculations section within the fringe benefits must be shown. It should not be left blank. Next slide. More on fringe benefits, grant award share. This is the amount that's going to be applied to your awarded amount that's reflective based on your award notice, a portion of it. Your other share will be automatically computed from the fringe benefits. And then your formula for total cost, which will be the grant award share plus the other share. And a reminder, other shares should never be negative. And with all these steps, your fringe benefits section would be complete within your personnel cost on Form 2. Next slide. Moving on to Form 3. So this is a visual on some non-personnel categories, including operating and technical costs, professional and technical services, travel, materials and supplies, equipment is non-applicable, indirect options, 1, 2, 3, and 4, field trips, and stipends, which require an attachment A to detail out the calculations and request. Next slide. This is our 2022 guidance around allowable budget items for our corporate and grant funded agencies. So requests, including but not limited to audit, legal, publications, advertising, printing, rental of property, making sure you submit a copy of your current lease if you're requesting, rental of equipment, services, insurance, utilities, telephone, cell phone expense, postage, technical meeting costs, repair, maintenance of equipment, building, membership dues, subscriptions will fall under the operating and technical expenditures under 0100. For professional and technical services falling under 0140, any consultant costs, subcontractors, accounting services, IT services, and or speakers. For travel under the 0200 account, requests for bus cards, mileage, parking, cab fare, Uber, Lyft, things of that nature would fall under 0200. For materials and supplies, which is our commodity line, the account is 0300. So things such as office supplies, program supplies to help run your program, fuel for your agency vehicle, gasoline gift cards. If they are e-cards, that needs to be specifically notated on your budget. Any snacks, clothing, uniforms, small tools, utensils, audio-visual materials, books, computers, software, that would fall under the 0300 materials and supplies line. Equipment is non-applicable, so there should be nothing listed under that field. And then indirect costs, similar to last year, there will be 4 options. This year's template includes boilerplate language on the actual template, so you will remove 3 of the 4 options and update the option that you are requesting. with the language inputted on Form 3. If you are requesting the option to utilize a federally negotiated rate, a copy of your approved indirect cost agreement will need to be submitted with the budget. Items reflected in the other category, 0999, would include field trip admission, bus rental for field trips, award ceremony costs, any youth stipends, which I mentioned, requires an attachment A, which is a tab within the Excel document that is already set up for your agency to plug in information on the calculations on how you derive the requested stipend amount, and then clarification in regards to the dollar amount for gift cards and or e-cards that are used for incentives, which is at $25. And then any other items that are not specifically able to be captured in the other cost categories that we reviewed, as well as any depreciation related costs that would fall under 0999. I do want to mention that the summer program delegate agencies that are handled by Lisa Davis and Evelyn Benitez, they would be able to provide you with additional guidance in regards to the gift card amount, should there be a variance. Next slide. This is a screenshot of the youth division's SCAN model, which is part of the prevention and intervention portfolio. So our service coordination and navigation support services allowable costs. Any of these items are allowed to be requested. I did want to note that stipends for this program model are not allowed. If you have any specific questions in regards to these items, we ask that you reach out to your assigned program contact, prior to submitting for these requests. Next slide. Also part of our prevention and intervention, mentoring support services allowable costs. These items are eligible to be requested as support services, and any additional information or clarification that's needed, please reach out to your assigned program contact at DFSS to review the request prior to submission on the budget form. Next slide. And this is just going into additional detail. We went over the costs that fall under account 0100. Just a reminder, please don't use vague descriptions such as other administrative costs. What do you mean by other administrative costs? Please detail that out. Your description should be tied to specific bills so that these costs can be reimbursed. If you're including rent, I had mentioned, please provide a current rental agreement with your budget. If you're leasing a van, please also provide a leasing agreement. Next slide. Professional and technical services. If you are including coordinators or instructors, you want to make a note that this is not someone already on your agency's payroll. If they are, they would be reflected under Form 2 under the personnel. Next slide. And then some tips in regards to travel that we've reviewed. Field trips will not go under this line. They will be reflected under 0999. And just a reminder, when you're conducting any intakes or you're screening your youth, to gauge if they need venture cards, make sure you're reviewing the DFSS memo on gift cards and bus tracking. There is a sheet available for you to capture the required information. If you're including bus or van rental, make sure it's only for programs going to work sites or other project sites. It really needs to be critical and necessary for the program to be able to transport youth to and from sites if a request for a bus or van rental. And then also, as previously mentioned, any renting a bus or van for field trips that will go under the 0999 other line. Next slide. Some tips on materials and supplies. This is where the gas cards would fall for agency vehicles. The specific program model, Chicagobility, which applies to our summer program. They are not eligible for gas cards for their youth. And then just a reminder on when you're conducting intake and screening for youth on the necessity of gas cards over venture cards, because there might be some youth that have the ability to use their own vehicle when they're going to work. And just a reminder to review the guidance and tracking sheets for gift cards and gas cards. And then the fuel reminder to list that as a commodity under materials and supplies 0300, and gift card requests should be under 0999. Next slide. Additional tips on the 0999 account number. So this is in relation to incentives for end of program celebration for the youth. So gift cards, would fall in this area, whether that's, for school supplies or to the bookstore, it would be captured in this account number. And then as well as any supported services that we mentioned for the scan model, as well as mentoring. Next slide. And this is really focused on the summer program. We have some agencies that participate in centralized payrolls. This is for later in the year as it applies to budget revisions. For these specific agencies that participate in centralized payroll, there are no budget revisions that affect the ADP payroll line on their budget. So it's just a reminder for those agencies in which that this applies. And just a reminder to make sure the workers' compensation on the second line is basically the gross salary paid for by ADP times 0.0111. And also that not everyone has a varied rate. Next slide. And this is a sample of a completed attachment A. You'll see, for example, the number of interns for the program times the number of interns that will work for the week times the cost per hour times the number of weeks in the program. Calculation is provided. And then also the applicable fringe benefits, if requesting, is also provided. And then the total request under the wage computation, this will be tied back to the 0999 account. Next slide. And this is a completed attachment B. This is completed for coaches. So there's coaches that are involved within the program. Same logic, number of hours they'll be working per week, the cost per hour times the number of weeks, detailing out the computations, as well as including any fringe benefits that will be paid, and then your overall request for the wage expense. That should be detailed out and provided. Next slide. And this is just a screenshot of the CTA and gift card tracking sheet that I mentioned. So if applicable, please make sure all the respective fields are completed and review the memo for additional guidance. Next slide. More guidance and reminders in regards to the budget form. Really, really important as you're working through the standard Excel document to work hand in hand with the instructions for the budget form that are provided. Both are posted to the city contracts website, which is referenced on your award letter. You want to use those instructions that will walk you through step by step when you're completing the Excel budget document. You want to review the DFSS gift card and CTA transit card policy. It was released back in 2018, and it is pending an update in 2022. You want to verify all shaded fields in yellow on the budget forms are completed. You want to make sure you verify that all budget pages are properly formatted and legible. Please don't cut off any descriptions or pages. You want to verify the correct number of budget pages are included. All budget forms, and this is for later in the year as it relates to budget revisions, because an additional form will be required, which is 1A. But for all initial budgets, minimally Form 1, 2, and 3 is required. You want to verify the heading on Form 1 and Form 1A, and that Form 1A relates to budget revisions. But Form 1 for initial budgets, you want to verify that heading information is correct. You want to verify the description and justification for each of your total costs that's being requested and filled out on Form 3. You want to ensure you're meeting your match requirements per your program model, 10% and 15% for administrative costs. This is as it relates to One Summer Chicago and CYSC, and then 15% match for the enrichment program. You want to make sure that there is a name of the fund manager. The form that for 2022 will have my name on there. We want to make sure that your agency's representative is reviewing and also signing off on that budget Form 1 prior to submission. And the budget, once completed, signed off by your agency, will be submitted to your program contact identified on your award letter. They will make sure that it will be routed to the finance team. Please do not send anything directly back to the finance team. It should go to your program liaison, depending on the program model. Next slide. I just want to run through, we also have instructions on how to access the city website once your contract is executed, and later in the year, if there are any budget revisions, how to access your approved copy of a budget revision, as well as information on payments. All can be looked up by using your global PO number, which is noted on your award letter. Once your budget is approved and your contract is executed, there'll be what is termed a standard purchase order, standard PO release number. This is the number that will be utilized when vouchering for your expenditures for the upcoming year. I also want to point out item M on Form 1, which is the budget summary form, and item O for the on Form 1 on the budget summary form is where you can find information on the funding strip. We had quite a number of kickbacks last year in regards to missing and or inaccurate funding strip being filled out on the voucher invoice forms. This is a reminder on the location of where to find this information so that it can be inputted when the time comes for vouchering. Want to make a note, your contract is not approved until it's signed by the City of Chicago, the issuing department being the Department of Family and Support Services, and able to be downloaded from the city website that I mentioned. And the link is here. Next slide.
Mahita, we have about 2 minutes left. I want to make sure we get to the deadlines and timelines.
Sure.
We will be sharing out these materials at the end. So could we skip over to?
Yep.
All of this information will be shared with you all. So I want to make sure we get to this.
Yes. So important deadlines. You want to refer to your award letter for your contractual document deadlines. A lot of these award letters came out in December. So, you know, information was due back to our department already, you know, earlier this month. Want to go over the summer employment and enrichment summer program deadlines. September 1st, 2022 will be the deadline for agencies to submit any requests for budget revisions. October 21st, 2022 for the summer employment and enrichment summer program. Please submit any final delegate agency invoices for 2022, which includes resubmissions and iSupplier. For enrichment school year and year round and prevention and intervention program models, September 30th will be the due date to submit any requests for budget revisions to DFSS. January 31st of next year, 2023, is when all final delegate agency invoices relating to 2022, including resubmissions and iSupplier, will be due. Want to make a note, year-end vouchers. Please do not combine calendar years. December vouchers are due in January. Do not submit December combined with January, because January has a different funding source and will be part of your new awarded contracted budget. And then last reminder in regards to 2021 vouchering, January 31st for our corporate funded agencies, our Chicago Housing Authority funded agencies was January 14th. And our community development block grant agencies, if applicable, was also January 14th. But in about 11 days, that is when we should be on track to be receiving your invoices as it relates to 2021, including resubmissions for any rejections or deletions. Please try to don't wait till the last minute. Please try to submit it as soon as readily available. Thank you.
All right, thank you all for joining. We are at 11 o'clock and we want to be respectful of your time. So we will hang out a little bit and answer any questions. We know that there are questions in the chat that we couldn't get to, so we'll make sure we follow up with those. In the meantime, thank you all for joining and listening to all this information, and we are around to support you all, and let us know if you have any questions. We'll follow up with all these materials and answers to the questions in the chat after. If you have to log off, we completely understand. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.